We have seen in the last few episodes why the youngsters are so much interested in cinema and why so many are surging forward to learn cinema. What really is a backdrop or the motivating factor, or what exactly is driving them to learn cinema? If I talk about cinema to 100 students at a particular time, definitely whatever I say, whatever I show and explain, it will not be perceived the same way by everyone in the crowd. Each one will perceive it or understand it depending on their backdrop, their educational backdrop, their cultural backdrop, their method of working. So many other factors are involved in it. That way, definitely filmmaking cannot be taught. Not only I see this, many other scholars, many other film teachers have said the same thing before. For example, you must know the Alexander McKendrick, the great Hollywood filmmaker who made films like The Sweet Smell of Success. He was one of the finest teachers in Hollywood. He was teaching in Caltech for quite a few years. In fact, when he was teaching there, he used to give lots of notes to the students, whose notes were made into a book called On Filmmaking, Introduction to the Craft of the Director. It's a beautiful book. Even he said the same thing. Filmmaking cannot be taught, but it can be learned. I suggest those who want to start learning filmmaking, there are umpteen number of books available today in all languages, especially in English. So there are so many books. What are the books I should start with when I want to learn filmmaking? Of course, I'm not an expert or just I'm learning filmmaking. I would seriously suggest this book by Alexander McKendrick on filmmaking. It's a very interesting book for anyone who starts. There are quite a few other books are also. Robert McKee's book on story. It's another very interesting book you should start with. Of course, there's a very old classics. Lodge's Agree, his book, The Art of Dramatic Writing. These are all like very initial, fundamental, sometimes even like Bible kind of books to start. Of course, now there are many interesting books, especially the great filmmakers have written about it based on their experiences. Of course, not every filmmaker writes a great book, but some filmmakers, David Mamet or Sidney Lumet, their books are also very interesting to start with. Okay, now let's move away from the subject of whether filmmaking can be taught or not. That's a different thing. But we should understand filmmaking definitely can be learned. Okay. If filmmaking can be learned, where do we begin? What is the first step one should do it? Of course, anything, if you want to learn, you have to know the plan. You have to have some kind of a structure to start with. So where do we begin? That's a question. I would suggest to begin with, we already discussed about the bit of history of cinema. We have to start with the history of cinema. In addition to the history which we discussed about in the previous episode, what do we start with is, we should understand filmmaking is a collaborative art form. Though I mentioned in the last episode, there are filmmakers who, as a single member crew, as a one-man crew, also made films in the recent past. That's a different story. Of course, it's a very interesting story. Those stories I'll be talking about later, not now. But fundamentally, the filmmaking is collaborative art form. An individual cannot do it. When you watch a cinema on a screen, what do you see? It's a big technical thing. Someone should have shot it. Quite a few people should have lit it up, the scenes. So many people must have worked up for that. And you see the actors. The actors are the very important thing. Very often I feel, finally the filmmaking is nothing but handling of actors. Because what finally you remember, carry home is the actors' performances. Through their performances, you learn the story. So the actors. Then later in the post-production, you need so many technicians. You need a very good editor. unless editor knows the pace of the film and the mood of the film and the genre of the film, he cannot give that pace. So editor is a very, very important thing. Then the sound design comes. Then so much of work is done in the sound design. And today, with the new technology, the DI and the visual effects, you create something on the screen through the camera, but later you add too many layers. Today, cinema, we should understand, is a multi-layered art form. What we record with camera is only one layer. There are many other layers which we add later in the post-production. Then all these visual layers put together becomes one layer, like audio mix. The visuals are mixed. Then when you perceive it, as if one single frame, one single space, but there are hidden layers within that single frame. Though it is a collaborative art form, in general, the director is the author of the film, cinema, whatever it's a short film or a documentary or a long film. In that sense, what do I say to start with? Filmmaking needs an enormous effort. Filmmaking needs enormous effort and concentration. What is this enormous effort and concentration? Because filmmaking is not just wanting to tell a story. Of course, storytelling is a basis. When you want to tell the story, because your basic variables are audio and visuals. So when audio and visuals, visual means a space, you should know, you have to take the enormous effort to deciding the location in the first place. Having done the script, having locked up your script, having decided the story and the genre of the story, having decided the pace and the style of the film, all those things are there in the pre-production stage, which we'll be discussing later. But now, the enormous effort means your story needs different locations. You should be too good at choosing your right location. For example, you have a scene in a bachelor room. Okay, now what do you do for that? There's nothing called bachelor room. Of course, there are bachelor rooms, but any room can be made into a bachelor room, because bachelor room means audience will understand the moment you have the characteristics of the bachelor room are shown. Any room can be converted that way into a bachelor room. If you want to go to a real bachelor's room, you can go there, because many things are already set there. You don't have to do much of work, but you need to get permission, you need to have the right space, you need to have the right sources to place your lights, you need the sufficient amount of space or insufficient amount of space, because you want the story to take place in a kind of a 10 into 8 room where 4 guys are staying, so that the claustrophobic, the quality of the space should be brought out to bring out certain emotions or to bring out a storyline. For that, you should know where to place the light, or you should decide whether you want to shoot it in available light. Then it can be done only in the daytime. If your bachelor room is somewhere where there is no source of external light, natural light coming in, you have to go for the artificial light, or you have to go for the right space that you have to convert into a bachelor space. It's a very, very simple thing, my God. Then only when you get into this, you will understand, my God, to create one bachelor room, we have to struggle so much. Then you have to study what are the characteristics of the bachelor room. Then you have to plant everything in. You have to decorate that room into a bachelor room, or you have to make it up into a bachelor room. For that, you should put some posters, you should have the cloth line, dirty clothes hanging. Of course, we are fortunate the film doesn't convey the smell. Other sense, we have no job for the nose when you watch a good film. We only use our other senses, of course, basically our eyes and ears. So you don't have to worry about the other things, but that is called art direction, which again we'll be talking much later. But when I talk about the enormous effort and the concentration, this is what, okay, then you decide. Then you need your artists. Of course, casting is a different ball game. Again, we'll be discussing it later. Then once you decide the artist, you want all the artists to be there on time. For that, when you're worrying about decorating your room up, You can't be worrying about how to bring an artist on time. You need someone to do the job. You understand? This is what I mean collaborative art form. They should bring. Then the makeup. So many things are there. Only when you get into this, my God, layer after layer after layer after multi-layer works will be waiting for you. Not only the work will be waiting for you, also the problems would be waiting for you. You would go and see a room. Oh, beautiful it is. This is the room I want to create the scene in. And beautiful light is coming in. So you decide, oh, this morning between 9 and 11, beautiful daylight coming in. You plan everything. You go, that was a day. There would be full cloud about to rain. Even if it is a peak of summer, you might face the situation, because that is filmmaking. I often wonder, any new guy, any young guy tries to make his first film, the whole universe conspires against him. Many things will happen, but you should know how to manage it. You can't get bogged down by it, or you should not get upset by it. Don't worry. Either find an alternate or wait for another day. So this is just the beginning of enormous effort and the concentration.